Hey everybody, welcome to my basement. This is not an area I like to generally show off to the public because it's kind of a disaster on this half of the basement. But this is where I'm going to be starting my seeds this year. I know we're all chomping at the bit to get going on growing, and I know a lot of people are really anxious to start seeds. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to be starting my seeds this year. Most of what I'm doing this year is the same thing that I've been doing for several years, and I feel like I've had good success with that. I am changing where I'm actually starting my seeds. Normally, I start my seeds upstairs in an east-facing, by an east-facing window. I figured there's a little bit additional light there, in addition to the lights that I rig up. But it takes up a lot of room and it's kind of messy. This year I'm going to do it all in the basement. So I want to show you what I'm using this year. So starting at the beginning of the process, this is the tray that I use to mix my soil if I'm making soil blocks, which is how I prefer to start seeds. This is a soil blocker. This is the one that I use. It's a 4-hole. It's 2 inches per hole. And I love starting seeds this way. It works out really well for me. It's a really good way if you're trying to reduce your plastic use. But there is a few things that you have to switch up when you're starting with soil blocks. I will put links to posts that I've written about using soil blocks. It's not difficult though, so don't be intimidated by it. I actually think it's easier in a lot of ways than starting plants in a lot of other ways. Hey, one note I just want to make really quick is that seed starting doesn't have to be expensive. There are a whole bunch of ways that you can kind of DIY or find inexpensive solutions to starting seeds. So don't feel like you have to buy all this stuff. I just have kind of invested in things over the years because it's become clear to me that this is something I'm going to be doing for a long time, and so it was worth the investment to me. But don't feel bad about, and don't feel like you have to run out and buy all this stuff. I would say the one thing you do need is a grow light. I don't think it's possible in almost any case to properly start seeds without a grow light, and I think that a heating germination mat is really helpful too. Beyond that, you can kind of wing it with some of this other stuff, but I just want to show you what I use. So those are the two things that I use the most when it comes to the first part of starting seeds. And then I make the soil blocks into just those plastic nursery trays. Oh, one other thing. This is how I organize my seeds. This is called a seed keeper. You can actually go to seedkeeper.com. I bought this, hashtag not sponsored. I like this, but you could also, basically it's like a Tupperware container that's roughly the width of a packet of seeds. And there's dividers in there. This is none of the seeds that I bought this year. I need to go through this, pull out the really old stuff. I've not been very good about keeping up on this year. But this is how I store my seeds. I store them down here in the basement where it's cool in a cabinet. So it's dark and cool down here, and obviously they're protected from moisture or anything because they're in this thing. So I know there's a lot of clutter in the background, but this is what I use to start my seeds. This is just a cheap rolling rack, storage rack that I bought probably on Amazon. I'll put links to everything in the description for you guys. Some of the things might not be exactly the same because I bought them a long time ago, but they'll be a close substitute. Anyways, it's just a cheap metal rolling rack with adjustable shelves on it. So everything's a little messy here, but the first step after I make my soil blocks and plant my seeds is it goes on this heat mat. This is, I can fit 2 flats on there at one time, and I put a towel underneath it just because I'm trying to save as much heat as possible. I don't want that heat escaping out the bottom. So once the seeds germinate, so you put them in a flat, sow your seeds, stick them on here, cover them up with a humidity dome. Once they've germinated, you move them off of this heat mat, and that's when they move on to the next stage. So something new that I'm doing this year is trying to make the most of the light that I have. And so to do that, I created essentially a reflective box. I found this material. It's a vinyl material. It's white on one side, and it's got this reflective coating on the other side. I found this on Amazon, and this is the 6 mil version. There was cheaper stuff that was thinner, but I was afraid of that. If you've ever worked with like Mylar material before, it can rip really, really easily. So I just bought a roll of this, and I covered 3 sides of this shelf with it, and I used, so the tape I used to do this was this tape, which is actually, I believe, this is actually duct tape. Like if you, I think you're supposed to use this when you're actually sealing ducts. It's a metal tape, and it itself is reflective, and I put this on both sides of the seams, some of them anyways. So that was helpful, but it also seems to be sticking really well to this. I didn't want to use regular duct tape because if you pull that off, it leaves that terrible residue, and I want to make sure I can reuse this material again, and if I decide to take it off of this thing, I just want to roll it up and I'll put it back together next year. So that's the tape I used for this. So the first light I have is a 4-foot long LED light with 3 bulbs that I got from Gardener's Supply last year. It's a good thing I plugged it in because I see that one of my bulbs right here is burned out, so I'll have to fix that problem. I always hang the lights from an adjustable system, so if they don't come, because you're going to have to move your lights up and down. LED lights tend to be a lot brighter. They don't need to be as close to the plants as regular like T5 lights need to be. So keep that in mind, you're going to have to play with it. The next shelf down here, this is a regular T5 light. That doesn't work at all. The next light is just a regular 4-foot long T5 light. You can see how much different and less bright this light is. If you look underneath here, you can see the bulbs. Now those bulbs are a couple years old, so maybe they're getting old. I'm not going to replace any more regular bulbs. I'm going to switch to all LED when I can. So that's light number 2. This one will have to be like 2 inches away from seedlings, and then I'll move it up as they grow. And then the last one, and then the last light I have is this small square LED one that has blue and red lights on it, and you can change what you want to, what color light pattern you want to have. So you can turn off the reds and just have the blues if you want. I'll be honest, I don't really understand exactly the LED light spectrum thing as well as I should. So that light I won't use until we get down to no more germinations and I don't need the germination mat anymore. I just have it set up for later. So that's the light setup this year. You know, everything, you have to play around with everything and see how well things are doing and be ready to just kind of react to what your plants are telling you. The last thing that's going to go on here is I'm going to hook a small fan, clamp a small fan onto the bracket here, just a little 6-inch fan on, just to keep the air circulating. Because now with this sort of tented in, it won't be as easy for air to circulate in there, and seedlings definitely want. Oh, and the last important part of this system is a timer. I like to have my lights on for about 18 hours a day. So we're going to set this timer up and everything's going to go on and off without me being a part of it, because you will never remember and you don't want to mess around with them that much anyway. So everything will be on a timer. Usually I do 18 hours a day. We'll see how that goes. So one last word about seed starting, you guys, which is don't be in too much of a hurry. You know, plants just want to keep moving. They pause. They're not happy with that situation. So you know, you want to make sure that you're moving your plants, your seedlings up to bigger pots when that's necessary, once they've outgrown the containers that they're in, whether that's a soil block or a little cell. And then you want to make sure that you're hardening them off and you're moving them outside as soon as the weather is right for that crop. So the thing you want to do is find your last frost date. You can go online and Google last frost date by zip code, enter your zip code, and it'll give you a bunch of dates based on the likelihood of a frost. I usually take roughly the 90% frost-free date, meaning you've got a 90% chance that there won't be a frost after that date. Sometimes I back that up a couple of days and I use that as my date, and then I work everything back. So if a seed says start 7 weeks before your last frost date, I use that date as my last frost date, count back 7 weeks, and that's when I start it inside. All right, so that's it. If you guys have questions about seed starting, let me know. Leave a comment, let me know what your questions are. I'll try to answer them all. But most of all, just have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Not everything's gonna work. Some stuff is gonna be a disaster. Some stuff is gonna be an amazing success, but it's fun and it satisfies that need to garden right now. So let me know what you think. Talk to you soon.